We now have our base plate complete. Click the Save button and save it in the folder where you downloaded all the rest of the parts. And call it Base Plate. Now it's time to start assembling all of our parts into a complete robot model. Click the New File button in the toolbar, click Assembly, then click OK. Under Part/Assembly to insert, click Base Plate, and then click once in the workspace to place your base plate. Since this is the first part that we're inserting into our assembly, it has been fixed in place. It can't move. Now let's insert some more components. Click the Insert Components button in the toolbar on the Assembly tab. Click Browse and select Motor ASM, which is short for Motor Assembly. Place it into our assembly. You'll notice that this one can move, unlike the base plate that we placed out at first. We have to position it into the correct place. To do that, we will use the Mate tool. Click the Mate button on the toolbar. Mates work by placing constraints on the position of two parts relative to one another. In this case, click the top face of the base plate, then rotate around and click the bottom face of the motor assembly. You'll see that under Standard Mates, Coincident has been selected, which means that these two faces are now constrained to be touching. They have to be touching each other. Click OK. Then click OK again to exit from Mates. This will allow you to move the component around, and you'll see that no matter how you drag this, it's always going to be stuck to being touching with the base plate. You'll see we can move it off the side here, but if you rotate around, the bottom face of the motor will always be, aligned with the top face of the base plate. Now let's add some more mates to further position our motor assembly here. Click Mate again. This time, we will align the hole features in the base plate with the holes in the motor assembly. Click the hole on the motor, then click the hole, the cylindrical part of the base plate, and you'll see that they have moved to now be aligned. Concentric is selected on the Mates panel over here, which means that those two holes will be concentric, so they're aligned. Click OK. Now we can place the mate for the other hole. Select the hole in the motor assembly. Select the hole in the base plate. You see it's popped up with an error here. The default mate type, concentric, would overdefine the assembly. What's happened here is that SOLIDWORKS is very particular about the dimensions in our parts. And we've specified the distance here as some number of inches, but that this motor part here is actually a metric part. It was made using metric units. So we could use inches to specify it, but we need a whole lot more decimal points than we currently have when we made our base plate. So let's go back and fix that. Click the X to get out of Mates, and then switch back to your base plate by hovering over the SOLIDWORKS logo, which brings up the menu, going to Window, and then selecting Base Plate, or whatever you decided to call your base plate part when you saved it. The holes in question are these four here, which were the last set of holes that we made. If you click on the hole feature in the browser on the left-hand side here, it brings it up. You can double-click on this 1.18 dimension, which is the one that we're interested in order to change it. As I said, we specified this as a number of inches, but in order for SolidWorks to be able to match that up with the motor part, we'd have to specify many more decimal points here. The much easier way to do it is to give it a metric dimension. In this case, type in 30 millimeters as 30 mm and click OK. The displayed unit, the displayed measurement here will not change because SolidWorks is truncating it to 2 decimal places. However, if you go and edit again, you notice that it has many more decimal points after the 1.18 now. Go ahead and save your base plate to make sure the changes are preserved. And click Rebuild and Save. And then switch back to your robot assembly by going to the menu, Window, and selecting your assembly. It will tell you that some of your parts have been updated because we just changed the base plate. So tell it yes to go ahead and update the assembly model. Now let's try making that mate again. Click on Mate. Click on the hole in the motor assembly. Click on the hole in the base plate. You see that everything aligns now. Click OK to place your mate. Click OK again to exit mate from mate mode. Now you'll find that if you try to drag the motor assembly around, you can't. It's been fully mated in place. Now that you know how to place the motor in, go ahead and click Insert Components, Browse, and let's place another motor assembly for our left wheel. Then do the same operation that we did to place the first motor on the second motor. Click Mate. Once you have your motors placed, let's go ahead and save our assembly. Click the Save icon. Save this assembly also in the folder where the rest of the parts are. And we call this assembly robot, because that's what it will be. Let's go ahead and continue adding parts. Click Insert Components, Browse, and the next one we'll put in is the one that starts with Amazon small parts and then a part number. We'll need 4 of these, and so we could go through the effort of placing one, going back to Insert Components, Browse, and insert another one. Or a faster way is to click the push pin icon, which allows you to place many parts in quick succession. We need 4 standoffs, so place 4 of them, and then click the OK check mark. These 4 standoffs will be placed in the 4 remaining large holes in a similar manner as how we mated the motor assemblies. Click the surface of the sheet metal, click the end of the stand. Make sure you're in mate mode first. So mate the surface of the sheet metal to the bottom of the standoff, and then mate one of the holes to the hole in the bottom of the standoff. And you'll find that it becomes correctly positioned. Now repeat the same procedure for the other 3 standoffs. Note that for these mates, the order that you select the features in doesn't matter. So you can either select the base plate first and then the standoff, or you can select the standoff first and then the base plate. It'll do the same thing. Next part that we'll insert is called top plate. This was made in a similar fashion to how you made the base plate, but I made it for you already. This will also get mated onto now the top of the standoffs using the 4 holes in the corners. And make sure you're in mate mode in order to mate. For this one, you only need to necessarily place one mate between the surface of the top plate here and the end of the standoffs. Once you place that mate, it will place the top plate at the correct height, and so it's unnecessary to do the same mate to the other 3 standoffs, though you're welcome to if you would like. From there, you can place mates on the holes. And similarly, in this case, it's only really necessary to place mates on 2 of the holes. That will fully specify the position of the top plate here, though again, feel free to also add the mates on the other 2 holes if you would like. And you'll find that now that top plate is locked in place in the correct position. Next, we can put in the part that starts with Amazon and then a part number. This is our battery pack. And it will get mated to the surface of our base plate on the bottom. Though it doesn't necessarily have a well-defined position otherwise, but generally you want to place it underneath where the top panel is located. It's a good practice to periodically save your parts and your assemblies as you're working. SolidWorks is a great program, but it does occasionally crash, and the more often you save, the less work you'll lose if that happens.